So now we can move forward and build our tweet form where the user can type a tweet and then submit it, and we will save it, store it somewhere, and so when the user refreshes the page, the tweet will be still there. So the first thing that we want to do is actually add a form in here. So let's have a form, and we don't care about the action. For now, we can just simply use the beyond directive and listen for the submit event and use the prevent modifier so that the page won't refresh when we submit the form. And we can submit this form using a method that we will define inside the object, inside the data object, inside the methods object in the view instance. So let's write like send tweet. So that tweet, that's going to be the name of the method that we will need to create. And after that, inside the form, we need the actual input field. So we will actually use a text area for that. And of course, we will have a label, and in the label, we will have, like we did before for the registration form, a characters counter, so the user knows when he reached the limit. So let's have a div with the class form group, and in here we will have a label. Oops. Label, which is for the tweet, and in here we can say just send your tweet and have a span, and in here we will use in template strings to say, so we will need a couple of properties inside the data object that we can use later on to make the comparison. So let's say you type 20 over like 200 characters. So we want to output something like that. So we need the first thing is gonna be the length of the tweet message that the user is typing. So we will need a property that we can call tweet message and get its length, and then we can concatenate that with another property that we will need to define, of course, inside the data object, and we can say this is going to be called max tweet. Okay. Now, before moving forward and creating these properties, we can have our text area. So we have a text area, and the name is going to be tweet for the ID. 30 columns and 10 rows is going to be fine. And what I want to do is to bind these using the vmodel directive, and call this tweet message like the property that we used up here. So we bind this text area with the property that we have to define inside the data object, and we use it to show a characters counter, and we can have now a submit button. and say tweet. Okay, now the form is actually complete and we need to move to the next step and actually write the properties that we defined here and also this method inside this view instance. So let's do that. So just down here we can write this tweet message. This is going to be the place where we store the tweet that the user types. So this is going to be the name. And for now, it's going to be empty. So there will be nothing in here just yet. Then we can have a max tweet length. So let me grab this. And we can set this to 200, so the limit will be 200 characters, max tweet, and what else? Well, every time the user types and then submits this form, we need to store this tweet somewhere, and we can store each tweet as an object and save each object inside an array. So we can have a tweets property here and it would be an array, and then of course we need to grab the send tweet because this is going to be the method that we need to define right here. So this is going to be our method. Oh, okay, and inside the method we need at least we have at least to define the tasks that we want, the steps that we want to take and to make this work. So the first thing is gonna be like store the tweet in the tweets property. Then we can, so we write the tweets. Then, as we know, the text field, the text area will still have this content. So we need to empty that as well. So we can grab these. So before we do that, we can empty the text area via the tweets the tweet message. So this is gonna be the name of the property that we want to empty. After that, we want to store all these information, so all the tweets inside somewhere, so to save them and save them for later. So we can use, as we did before in one of the previous videos, we can transform the entire object and the entire array with objects inside. We can transform everything into a JSON string and then we can store it inside the local storage. So let's write these two steps. Transform the tweets to an array and a JSON object to JSON, and then we can store it in the local storage. Okay, so we have the first tasks that we want to do to make this work. And before we move any forward, let's see this reactivity in action. So let's see the binding between the form and our tweet message before we actually write any more code. Okay, so we have this. This is gone wild, and we will need to fix it. I'll do that in a minute. So let's open the inspector and open view instance. Click on the root element and type something inside this box. Okay, so if you see right here, you will see that as I type this update, so the vbind directive works, and we still have the user data that we typed before, because when we execute our application, we see that the local storage takes the information that we stored previously after the registration and then populate the user data object for us. So this works. This tweet button needs to be moved out here. So yeah, of course, we need to move the tweet button outside this form group. So we move this outside and we should be good to go. And in fact, you can see it here. Okay, so we have both the connection on both sides, so the two-way data binding between the text area and the property. And now we can use one of the property that we defined to limit the amount of characters the user types. And let's see also if this is working. So we type and you see we can see how many characters I'm typing, and we will reach 200 and we will pass 200 and nothing will stop us from keep typing. So we can add an attribute on the HTML side just to avoid the user from typing more than that. We can use the max length here on the text area. So we use the max length and we can use this max tweet property, and did I copy that? Yeah. And we need to bind this, otherwise we won't be able to read this property. And let's see if I wrote something somewhere wrong. Yeah, this is not, should not be here. Okay, so if we now type and reach 200, we should not be able to move any forward and should stop at 200. And in fact it does. Okay, so we have implemented this tweet box and now we need to make it work. Of course, we need to keep working on the method that is responsible for submitting this form. Of course, there is no backend, so everything happens in the front end. So start the tweet, not the twin. Okay, so let's store this inside the array. So we have an array and it's called tweets. Okay, so this is going to be an array. What I want to do every time I type a new tweet, I want to add this on top of the array, so at the beginning. So when we fetch this data, the last tweet will be at the top, and we can use on shift. So we need to pass here the item that we want to add to the array, and it's gonna be an object, as we said, and this object is gonna have two properties: text property that we can use to store the actual tweet message, and the tweet message that user is typing is inside this tweet message property, and then we can have date. So we have a date property, and to create a date, we can use a new date. So this date object from JavaScript, and then we can use two local date string or time string. Date string should be fine. And let's see what it looks like when we submit this form actually. So the next thing is going to be to empty this tweet message. So now it still has what we type. Let's see it in action. So we type something in here, we press tweet, nothing seems to happen because we have this text still in here, but if we check our view instance, we should be able to see something inside this tweets array, and we have an object with a date and a text. So the date, it might be better to save it as time instead of just date, because you see there is only the this format, so the day, month, and year. So it could be better if we use to locale time string. So there will be also the time saved, and we need to empty this text area, and we do that by calling this, and it's in the tweets message, and we set it back to an empty string. Now, after that, we can transform this tweets array into a JSON string using the JSON string file. So we save this to a variable. Let's see. Yeah, we save these string tweets. And so we create a variable where we will store this stringified version of our array. And let's say JSON stringify, and what we should stringify is these tweets. Okay, now we need to store everything inside the local storage to make our application work. So we click on this submit button, and everything is saved to the local storage. After we do that, so local storage, and we say set item, and the item that we want to set should have a key, and I'll just call it simple tweets, something like that, not that creative, but, and we can use these. So this variable now contains the string with our JSON in it, and we can save this to the local storage, and that's gonna be pretty much it. Let's see if it works. So let's save and refresh the page just in case, and type a tweet. Let's press tweet, and this is empty now. So we kinda submit this form, and we should see our first tweet in the array, and indeed we see it. So we said 5. So that's just a date, a time string, which could be fine for now, doesn't matter. Then we try to submit another tweet. and now we should have another object, and indeed we have two objects. Okay, now that we have everything we need, we can actually move forward to the next step and show a list of tweets so that the user, after he typed, he can see all the tweets that he's typing. And every time when we refresh the page, we should still see this information onto the page, because for now, if we click this refresh button and we scan the root, and we will see that our tweets array has nothing in it, because we need to do another step. We just saved the information inside the local storage for now, but we need to retrieve them, show them onto the page, but at the same time, when we retrieve them, we need to repopulate this tweet array. So in the next video, that's what we are going to do, and let's see you there, guys. Cheers.